My name is Jake. I'm an educator here at the park. I know I look like I'm a park ranger, but I'm technically not really a ranger. I'm an educator, so I'm like a teacher, and the outdoors is my classroom. So I work with DCNR, and DCNR stands for the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And we manage 124 state parks throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So there are a lot of parks. I think the Hickory Run is one of the best just because there's so much to do here. It's a 16,000 acre park, so it is really big. Okay. Anybody doing any camping at all this weekend? Few people? Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, we have a big campground, about 400 campsites in our campground. Anybody do any hiking today? Some? Yeah, okay. Well, we have about 50 miles of hiking trails. We have our newly built visitor center. If you haven't had the chance to check out the visitor center, I definitely recommend checking that out. There's a museum in there that's free, very interactive for children as well as adults. And we also have a few natural areas in the park, one of which is Boulder Field. So we call it a natural area because it gets some extra protection through the state, but it's also a national natural landmark. So it's also protected on the federal level as well due to its geological and historical significance. So looking out onto Boulder Field, it's pretty big, right? It's about 16 acres. It extends about 600 feet long and about 800 feet wide. And looking down from a bird's eye view, I think it looks like it's in the shape of a shark. Some people say whale, but I think it looks like it's in the shape of a shark, where we would be down here at the bottom of the mouth of the shark. And then out that way would be the tail end. And looking out, it looks like the boulders get smaller, right? It also looks like the people get smaller, but we know that's not true. But the boulders out there actually get bigger, and they look quite different than the ones that are out on this side. And I'll get into the reason why that is here in a few minutes. But Boulder Field, at the bottom of these boulders, there's a shallow valley that forms where it hits bedrock. Anybody know how deep the boulders go? No one read the sign out there? 10 to 12 feet deep. Yeah, so it goes down about 10 to 12 feet deep. And if you go out to the middle, you can actually hear water running because there is a stream that starts here. Anybody want to guess what stream that might be? And no, it's not Boulder Stream, but it's something else very obvious. Hickory Run. Yep. So Hickory Run starts here. You actually passed over it on your way here. You went over a bridge. You're going to be passing over it again on your way out. But Hickory Run goes down into the Lehigh River, which goes into the Delaware River, and then out into the Atlantic Ocean. So we're at the start of Hickory Run here. And so to get into the formation of Boulder Field, we're going to go back in time about 20,000 years ago. And we are sitting in this exact same spot right here. And off in the distance, in that direction, just about a mile away, we can see a huge glacier. Okay, a glacier is basically a giant block of ice. Okay, so there's a big glacier just about a mile away from here. This glacier is so big that it's about a mile thick in some parts. And it extends over most of North America. So it is a very big glacier. It's called the Laurentide Continental Glacier. So we are very close to it here. What do you think that it was like in this area?
Mountain.
It was pretty cold, right?
Mountain.
Yeah, not only because we were close to a glacier, but it was also about 20 degrees cooler back then, 20,000 years ago. Okay, so there really wasn't much going on. These trees weren't growing here. We definitely wouldn't have heard a helicopter above us. But it was mostly just sand and, maybe some mud around. Maybe there'd be a woolly mammoth migrating through off in the distance because they were around here during that time. But there really wasn't much going on. Now we're going to fast forward about 10,000 years. So 10,000 years ago, and what's happening to the climate? Yeah, it's getting warmer, right? And what happens whenever it's getting warm and there's a giant glacier? It starts to melt and there's a lot of water. Anybody ever see the movie The Ice Age?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think of that movie, probably not quite as dramatic as that movie, but there's definitely water coming off this glacier. And in this area where we have bedrock, the water would come down and it would freeze very rapidly because it was cooler back then, and in close proximity to that glacier, it would freeze and thaw very, very rapidly. So the water got into the cracks of the bedrock and it would freeze. And what happens when water freezes?
Ice.
It expands, and it's so powerful that it starts to break up the rocks. Okay, and that happens very rapidly over thousands and thousands of years to where we get a field of boulders. So we are out here, and as you move out this way, closer and closer to the glacier, the boulders get bigger and bigger and eventually turns into bedrock to where that glacier would be right here. So that's why I mentioned that the boulders, as you move back out that way, get bigger and bigger. Some of the ones just beyond the trees back there are the size of a small school bus. So yeah, they get really big, and eventually just turns into bedrock. What happens every year is the leaves fall off the trees and they get into the cracks of the rock, they decompose and create soil. And with soil we can have life. So if you can see like little trees growing around, some plants growing between the rocks. Perfect example is behind me here, where we have smaller trees closer to the field because they're younger, and then as we move out closer to the forest, we get bigger and bigger trees because they get older and older. So Boulder Field was once much bigger than this. It extended beyond the parking lot back there. In fact, you can still see boulders still sticking up throughout the forest. It's because that was once Boulder Field as well. So Boulder Field probably won't be here one day. It's definitely going to be a couple thousand years, so we won't be around most likely. But yeah, it is shrinking due to succession. So yeah. How about the life of Boulder Field? Anybody see any little movements on the rocks?
Spiders.
Yep, yeah, there are a lot of spiders, right? They're called wolf spiders. They're called wolf spiders because they hunt for their prey rather than building a web to catch their prey like most spiders do. But they won't hurt you. No need to worry. I see you all are like going like this. But they're not going to bite you. I can't even get a photo of one because they scurry so quickly under the rocks. But there's also some things that are, so there's also things that are attracted to the small insects. What might be attracted to like the spiders? Anybody see anything hopping around on the rocks? There's usually quite a few chipmunks out here, or little mice. Actually, the past 2 days that I was out here, I saw a little mouse just hopping around right here. But then there's things that are attracted to the small rodents, like snakes. Yeah, so you are all sitting in snake habitat right now. No need to worry. They're not going to hurt you. Just like the spiders, if you try to hurt them, then they might try to hurt you. But they're not going to eat us. You know, they don't eat people. We're too big for them. But no, please know that there are venomous snakes in the park. We haven't had any reports of any venomous snakes, surprisingly, out here at Boulder Field. But there are definitely a lot of venomous snakes in the park, especially timber rattlesnakes. We've been seeing a lot of recently. People have been reporting them almost every day, especially in the campground. If you do see a timber rattlesnake or another venomous snake, which would be a copperhead, please let us know. Please call the visitor center or let a ranger know so that we can come and remove it from the area to protect you all. If you see one on the trail, no big deal, but if it's like in the campground or at the beach or something like that, please let us know. So another quite frequent visitor of Boulder Field would be a quite large animal. Bear, yeah. So in Pennsylvania, we have lots of black bears, especially in the park where we have lots of people that have a lot of tasty food. So we say a fed bear is a dead bear. Even if you do not mean to feed the bear, sometimes people leave their food out, which is not good to do. You want to make sure you keep all of your food or scented items locked in your vehicle whenever you're away from your picnic site or campsite, because if a bear starts eating that food, which it will if you leave it out, then it can get used to people. Okay, it'll associate people with food. It'll get closer and closer to where it becomes dangerous, and it has to be euthanized. Okay, so please help us protect our bears by keeping any of your scented items or food locked away. Thankfully, over the past couple of years, we've just had to relocate bears without having to euthanize them because they didn't get too bad. But we do have to trap and relocate them very often in the park due to that issue. So please just keep that in mind. But yeah, we do see them out here at Boulder Field. Just a couple days ago, there was one when I was out here just walking along the edge along here. If you walk into the visitor center, you'll see a bear display. There's a photo right in the middle of a bear standing right here. So yep, they're out. So they are amazing animals. I think we're very lucky to have them in Pennsylvania. So if you do get to see one while you're here today, that is awesome. Consider yourself lucky. So a few tips for walking out onto Boulder Field. There are some boulders that are a little more wobbly than others, okay? So these big gray ones are going to usually be the stationary ones. And I know that because they haven't been moved by people. Okay, the ones that have been moved by people, I could tell have been flipped over because they're red. This is all Pocono red sandstone, and Pocono red sandstone underneath is red. Okay, so because of the weathering, it looks gray, but underneath it's red. So those are the ones that have been moved by people. They're going to be wobbly. So if you step on that, you're probably going to get hurt. So moving the rocks is very illegal to do, so you know. It is a national landmark, like I said. We can never replace those rocks exactly back where we found them. It's impossible to do. We can never replace exactly back where they once were. We do have active research going on out here, so just be aware it is very illegal to move the rocks. But these big gray ones are going to be the stationary ones that you should just try to walk on. Now, another thing is, if you have small belongings like your cell phones or your keys, try to hold on to them tightly or keep them stowed away. Remember how deep it goes out here? 10 to 12 feet deep, yeah. So if you drop something, you're probably not going to get it back. So to avoid that issue, just try to hold on to them tightly or keep them stowed away. Now, anybody like walk out that way at all today? Yeah? Did y'all see big pits? Yeah? So there are a lot of big pits. You probably can't see from where you're at, but they look like a bunch of little ant hills on this like aerial image. I counted about 80 of them. They're not natural. Those are from people digging. I don't know if they're doing it for fun, or maybe they do drop their car keys and they feel like they need to get it back and they keep digging for it, but what it really does, it makes it just go further and further. But just know, if you do go out there, you will see big, large pits, okay? Ones that you could basically stand in completely. Those are from people moving the rocks illegally. So just beware, they are not natural. So that is about it for my Boulder Field talk. I hope you all enjoyed it today. If you have any questions, I'll be sticking around for a little bit, or if you would like any suggestions on things to do in the park today, I could probably provide more information or recommendations, and I also have some park maps as well. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.